So I just went live on Instagram a minute ago, and Mike Wilson and Jordan Brandt jumped on board, and we had a nice little interaction about history and our past, and how Jordan, especially, we were talking about coming home, finding our pathways and coming home. And I guess, I had a couple questions. So I'm currently in the middle of digging through archives at my childhood home, my family home here in Hawaii, on Oahu. And I am going through like maybe a good 20, 30 years of images, photos that I've captured over the years, both as a professional photographer as well as a amateur, novice, hobbyist. And it really got me thinking. In a way, you're living with ghosts when you come back to a place like this. So you remove yourself and you kind of proceed and move forward with your own personal life, and you're creating an environment and a situation and a community outside of where you're from. So for me, it's Los Angeles. For you, if you've left your hometown where you were born and raised and you're in a new place, you've formulated new pathways and connections and constructs to enrich your life wherever you are. But when you come home, in a way, it's like a fucked up time machine. You're coming back to a place that in your mind maybe has frozen itself in time psychologically, because your perception of it is built upon the visions, ideals, experiences, and philosophies you had from the time you spent here, the chronology, the continuity of time that you spent in that place where you grew up. And when you come back, it's almost like a little reset where you kind of go back to that time. So it's weird, when I'm in Los Angeles and I'm with my girlfriend and I'm with my dog and I'm living my life there, doing the things that I do when I'm there, the patterns are different. Even maybe the music I listen to is different. I feel maybe I'm a little bit more progressive in my audio selection. And then when I come back here, there's a subconscious nostalgia that makes me think about There's a subconscious nostalgia that makes me think back to the high points, the hormonal era, through junior high and high school, and those experiences, and I immediately kind of plug back into that. And I'm not sure if it's a good thing or not. But one thing that Mike and Jordan and I kind of touched on topically was, is it better to leave and come back? Is the adaptation that we go through, that ritual that we go through, or that coping mechanism that we go through when we come back to a place that holds so many memories? Maybe there's a lot of doors that haven't quite been closed. Maybe there are a lot of questions that haven't been answered. There are definitely a ton of ghosts, literal and figurative. I think about my friends from here that have passed away, and how the remnants or the essence of them is still very much in the fabric of the areas that I drive through. Driving from my house to downtown, I pass by old haunts, if you will, right? We're talking about ghosts. So I drive by old haunts, friends' houses, friends' parents' houses that maybe they've moved on, or they're no longer there, or maybe we're no longer in communication. Places where we would go and hang out and be mischievous, places where we go and drink or camp or hike or cut school to go and hang out at. Driving down these old roads, thinking about the soundtrack of the times when, those areas were most vibrant and living, and we were all kind of immersed in that and living in that time, like being very present in that time. It's a very effective way to kind of rehash a lot of those ideas from that we formulate as we move away from a place. Uh, and I was wondering, I mean, is it better to never leave, where you can kind of grow and morph with the town? So, for example, my hometown here on Oahu has undergone a lot of growing pains. There are some major development acquisitions in the past decade. There's been a lot of major changes. The town isn't the same. And on one hand, I embrace change. I don't mind the change. I think people grab on to things that they're familiar with, and I think they're resistant to seeing the advent of progress. Um, there's a lot of opinions. We all want it to kind of be how it was when we were, right? I mean, you hear that back in my day, or when I was younger, or that's not the way I remember it from blah, blah, blah. And coming back, I see that it's much more apparent, it's much more acute. You get off the plane, I come back to Kailua, and I drive around, and it's like, wow, man, like this is really different. You know, I mean, I used to ride my bike over at the triangle right there at the intersection. You know, used to do this and do that, and those landmarks and a lot of those like familiarity type visuals are gone. But then I think about other places, like even Los Angeles, right? Like you think of LA as this screaming, hustling, bustling metropolis, just going 100 miles per hour into the future. And you have to also take stock at the fact that all those things that are historic and nostalgic, even in a city like Los Angeles, kind of get lost and in the shuffle and sifted down to like their most rudimentary parts. I guarantee you that there's people in Echo Park who are walking around right now in Echo Park or Silver Lake who are like, oh man, it was better in the 80s when I was getting stabbed by frickin' Echo Park Lake. And you know, you've got to have some experience with this too. I mean, my peer group is a little bit older. I would like to say I identify with, you know, a much younger group in my industry. There's a lot of young blood, a lot of young energy, a lot of fresh energy, and I love it. I thrive off of it. The ideas of fashion and politics and music, I feed off of that. I love that. You know, I love that perspective, and I really feel like that keeps me grounded. I never, ever, ever want to end up being that grumpy old man who's on his front lawn. You kids today and your loud music and all that crap. You know, I mean, that's just a death sentence when you get to that point. You know, but at the same time, coming back and seeing so many acute changes in Kailua, in my town, in downtown Honolulu, Kaka'ako. I know a lot of you people out there who are my friends and peers from Hawaii, from that era, who remember Kaka'ako being what it was, industrial places where you could go and find like guys who could weld brass and make radiators and glass cutters, and just like, you know, it's kind of a very craftsmanship part of town where people were still very blue collar, and there were a lot of like tradesmen down there who could do a lot of stuff, and that's kind of gone away. But even seeing that now, as harsh as it is to see, you can't help but wonder, what is this happening now, and how are we going to view that in another 20 or 30 years, right? Because everything's kind of a cycle. Because, you know, as I'm sitting here in my room where I grew up, and I've had a lot of moments and thoughts and emotions here in this very spot, you know, tears and laughter. I've shared moments with friends. I've had quiet times by myself. I've had times of doubt and times of depression and times of mirth. I've expelled a lot of energy here. And coming back here every year and year and year and year after year, as I grow older, and being in this area, in this spot, in this place that has so much history in it, I know you can relate. I know you have a place that you go to or you visit, or maybe even if it's only in passing once, you've gone back and you've experienced it. You know, a place that was special to you, that is special to you, that holds a lot of, you know, mana, a lot of strength, a lot of imagery, a lot of spiritual history, a lot of psychological history. I know that you must want to process that feeling. And that's kind of what I'm going through right now. I don't know how you cope with it, but normally I try and face things fairly head on, even if it's cerebrally. I try and analyze it. I want to dissect it and understand the root cause for why it is. Why is it in my head this way? Why did things unfold that way? Why did this instance happen that way? Why did that person feel that way after that interaction? Why did I feel a certain way after that interaction? So here I am now. I'm in my room. It's 2020, and I'm going through these archives. And I told myself at the beginning I was going to be very pragmatic. I was not going to let the history and the emotion tie into how I was going to sort through and kind of purge. I was literally coming here to purge. Not for any reason, not because we're liquidating the house, not because I'm expecting anything major to happen in my life that's going to alter my course, but because this stuff has literally been hiding in a dark closet, in the shadows. But I think I was leaving them in the shadows because I wasn't quite ready to accept the fact that that's the past. In a way, if I am not looking at these photos and looking at these photos from years ago and thinking about where I am now as compared to where I was then, maybe these ghosts could go on living. In a way, there's some type of comfort in living with those ghosts, right? It gives you a familiarity because ghosts don't change. Ghosts stay the same. Ghosts never grow old. Ghosts never die. Ghosts are stuck in a very specific moment in time. And so I'm taking all these ghosts out, and I just kind of want them, I guess, to be free in a way. And this is purely, metaphorical, I guess, symbolic. Obviously, they're not real ghosts, although I'm sure there are some real ghosts in there. But maybe this is a process. Maybe one of you who's watching this, maybe this is going to help you with one of your processes, something you've been putting off, something from your past that you don't want to deal with, an idea, a thought, a history, an open door that hasn't been closed yet. We've all got those shadows that we try and step over or avoid or try and ignore, pretend that shadow's not there. Pretend that feeling of, somebody or something in the recesses of our mind is wanting something a little bit more. And that's what this is. These images and these archives, these moments captured, they want something more. And I think in order to give myself peace of mind and in order to kind of free myself from the burden, Sunny Coates, what would you say about that if you're watching this, Sunny? Am I freeing myself from the burden of these memories by rehashing them, sorting them out, dispelling some of them as myth, casting them to the wind, throwing them in the trash can? Am I being real with myself here? I'm not sure. But we're going to tackle this. We're going to go through this, and we're going to come out on the other side, and hopefully a lot of those questions and memories are going to be refreshed and re-energized, and some of those ghosts are going to be freed to go about their lives and do what they will. And ultimately, in the most basic, pragmatic, realist sense, I really am hoping that this is cathartic and that I can move on to the next phase and come back to my space here in Hawaii with a little bit of a renewed look on my life and my place here in my home, instead of constantly recycling into the past and delving deep into those hormonal era years from back in the day. Yeah, good luck out there.